What's up, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Wizards Latest. I'm your host and DC sports fan, Ben Robertson, and on this page, we break down all the biggest headlines surrounding the Washington Wizards. So, as always, make sure you've hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Drop your comments with any thoughts you might have on the video or anything you want to hear me talk about in the future. Appreciate all the support here on the page, you guys. Keep tuning in. Videos dropping here Monday through Friday. Today, I want to talk about Tristan Vukvich and Team Serbia taking on Luka Doncic and Team Slovenia. Then we'll chat about Kyshawn George and Team Canada getting ready for FIBA AmeriCup action. We'll continue to look at some interesting matchups on the schedule next year for the Wizards. And lastly, we'll continue the John Wall retirement conversation, why the team was really not able to surround him and Bradley Beal with the proper talent they needed in their careers. We'll look at some of the draft history that sort of affected that era of Wizards basketball. Again, guys, thank you for tuning into the page here Monday through Friday. I want to talk about that Slovenia-Serbia matchup, of course, featuring Luka Doncic on the Slovenian team, but it was Team Serbia making an absolute statement ahead of the Eurobasket 2025 tournament. Remember, it begins next week, a 106-72 lopsided victory for the Serbian squad over Slovenia. Serbia scored the first 10 points of that game and just didn't look back. They shot 64% from the floor, held Slovenia to 33% shooting for the game. Luka finished with 17 points, but only on 4 of 18 shooting from the floor. Of course, here, the big story for Wizards fans is Tristan Vukcevic and his presence on this Serbian lineup and Serbian roster. He had 10 points and 7 rebounds in 18 minutes of action in that game and has worked his way into the starting lineup for that Serbian team. Remember, that was after, a nice showing in their first exhibition matchup against Greece, 7 points in 6 minutes. He blew up, went off in the blowout against Cyprus the next game. Remember that 24-point effort in that friendly, but now has worked his way into the starting lineup. And remember, that Serbian team has some, big names on it. Of course, headlined by Nikola Jovic on the team as well, Bogdan Bogdanovic, and, just hoping this carries into the actual Eurobasket tournament for Vukcevic, and just so excited for him with, one of in terms of international rosters, the more star-studded groups. He has really, again, been able to become a key contributor and really one of the key pieces. August 27th against Estonia is the start date for the Serbian team in Eurobasket play. We'll keep you posted on everything Vukcevic and co are able to do in that tournament. Again, just hoping he can continue the momentum and the progress he has made here in preparation action for that event. Let's move back here to North America and talk a little bit about Kyshawn George, or really the Americas, I should say, here with the FIBA AmeriCup tournament getting started here today, Friday, August 22nd, the release date of this video. Kyshawn George going to be featured on that Canadian squad. Of course, they are in action today against Venezuela, that tournament hosted down in Nicaragua. Canada opens, or when I looked this morning, I should say, as 18.5-point favorites on DraftKings in game one of that AmeriCup tournament against Venezuela. I was interested to see, and really kind of found out in a little bit of research, didn't realize Canada has actually never won that event. Maybe not as high profile as the Eurobasket tournament, of course, in Europe across the Atlantic Ocean, but still will give Kyshawn the opportunity to get some offseason reps that he has talked about as well. What better way to do it and get on the court than by competing, for the national team. Excited to see what he can do. Maybe really the biggest name on that Canadian roster, to be quite honest. We'll break down that action next week. Again, AmeriCup action getting started for Team Canada here today, taking on Venezuela. I want to look at the NBA schedule, the upcoming NBA schedule for the Wizards a little bit. Of course, schedule was released last week. Really, throughout this week, have been sort of checking out some of the matchups I think are interesting and continuing to do that today. Of course, we've seen here this offseason that beef of sorts arise between Charlotte and Washington fans on social media. Of course, the Wizards have won the last 5 matchups in that rivalry of sorts, as I will enjoy reminding you guys. Hornets won their first ever title, really, on any NBA level in the Summer League here this offseason. And now, as division rivals, they'll play 4 times this upcoming NBA year, getting started October 26th against Charlotte. That'll be the home opener for the Wizards, game number 3 of the year. Then they'll play once December 23rd, a couple days before Christmas, once in January, January 24th, and close things out against the Hornets, again back at home on February 22nd, the first and last matchup of the series. Going to be at home, of course, bookending 2 road games down in Charlotte. Seems like a pair of teams really in similar spots, to be quite honest. Some young pieces, of course, on the Hornets as well. LaMelo Ball, Brendan Miller, Knipple drafted here this year. Not expected to maybe go all in this season, but like Washington, a team maybe looking ahead to the future. Both teams kind of lacking center depth this year, to be quite honest, is going to easily or help limit the win totals, which I think is a goal of each front office. And hopefully, this is the early stages of a more serious rivalry down the road, again, with these 2 division opponents. Maybe this is something kind of, again, the early just pieces of it as we see kind of some of these young guys on both rosters start to develop. Last thing I want to talk about today, of course, John Wall's retirement has been really the big chatter here this week, the official announcement of that retirement. I started thinking, and so much is, of course, talked about and it seems like discussed with John Wall and Bradley Beal in their era here, and it feels like maybe unfulfilled potential. And started thinking, why did that happen? And of course, I think management, everyone sort of agrees, part of that. Part of really just the reason they couldn't put the talent around the team or around Wall and Beal that they needed to was just poor, notably poor draft history. Of course, I've talked about on the page, this is a team that once traded away a number 5 pick for Randy Foye and Mike Miller in a draft that included Steph Curry at 7th overall. But when you look at Wall and Beal's draft and then look at the immediate year after, there was big draft misses. Of course, the next year after drafting John Wall, Jan Vesely was the pick at number 6 overall in 2011. Didn't really work out. The year after drafting Bradley Beal, Otto Porter was selected number 3 overall in 2013. Probably a little bit more career success for Porter than Vesely, but still considered a miss for where he was drafted. Of course, Giannis went 15th overall, Giannis Antetokounmpo, in that draft. Now, no one really knew what he would become. Rudy Gobert went 27th overall. CJ McCollum went 10th in that Porter draft. I will say I don't totally fault them for that. They already had Bradley Beal, John Wall on the roster. Kind of understand passing on McCollum. The drafting did improve a little bit when Tommy Shepard took things over. There was 3 straight picks in the first round of Rui Hachimura, Denny Avdia, and Corey Kispert from 2019 to 2021. Now, with all of those being said, there were players picked after those guys that you go, man, I would have rather selected him. Don't totally fault him for that. I mean, sometimes you got to get a little bit lucky in some of these drafts. But the last, really the capper of bad picks was the Johnny Davis selection in 2022. Just didn't work out at all, and it was apparent from pretty much the start that it wasn't going to work out. Hopefully, these Will Dawkins era selections from these last couple years, and of course, Trey Johnson headlining this year's draft class, start to turn the tide in that regard. We will keep you posted on everything Wizards related right here on the page. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Turn on post notifications. Drop your comments with any thoughts you might have on the video or anything you want to hear me talk about in the future. Appreciate all the support, you guys, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Wizards Latest.